Howdy! I am doing a little HEC-HMS modeling today of a detention pond. This is for a project we have up in Amarillo, Texas, and having to play around with it and try to get it to show that the proposed flows are lower than existing. And I thought I would just make this video to demonstrate sort of the process you have to go through with making these things work and not killing yourself with extra effort, because there's just it's a lot of guesswork, and you just need to plug some numbers and play with the model a bit to get it to work, and then adjust your design accordingly. So for the first part of it, we come up with a conceptual or come up with a design that we think is going to work, or maybe we've done some rough detention calculations in schematic. Now we're trying to finalize those and make sure that we're not having any adverse impacts. So in that process, it's a lot of just fiddling with the model and making things work, and then going back and finalizing the design. So I wanted to demonstrate some of that since I was having to do it anyway. Kind of picking up in the middle, but I'll pull up the HEC-HMS model. And what we're trying to show is that we are not increasing flows at this junction, SDB2, and this PD outfall junction. We've put a detention pond in the project right here. This is somewhere in kind of a greenfield space between I-27 and US 87. We put a single detention pond there, measured it, got the elevation storage relationship here. This is the elevations of the pond, and my computer's being really slow, but these column L here is the actual storage values that the pond gives. So I've run it a couple times once Excel starts responding again. Just wait for it here. Goodness sakes alive. Should not be that difficult, Excel. But here we go. There's your elevation. That's the storage. That's from our current design. We calculated that with a 10 file we have. And then I'm not going to walk through all the steps of creating a detention, but I will show you briefly. So we added a table for the elevation storage using the paired data editor in HEC-HMS, and we put that information from here in there. If you look really closely at elevation 3607, it's actually only 0.002 acre feet, and I upped that up to 0.01. That's just to get it to run, because if it rounds it down to 0, it's going to give me an error that says it's not increasing in order, not increasing in value as it goes down the table. So you sometimes have to play with something like that and adjust it just to make it run. It doesn't really significantly affect anything. But that's what I did there. And then I've been running it and looking at the flows at this junction, and pretty well got it to work. Let me run it, for example. This is the 100-year event. So I go to the results of that. We got 740 CFS at junction SDB2. What I've been doing is copying these results. So that's this right here. I'm putting the ultimate flows down here. I'm comparing them to the existing. And at the existing, we have 791 CFS there for the 100-year event. So we're decreasing it to 740 CFS. So that's good. And we've done that using the elevation storage in that pond. And the outlet structure I put in here is 4 48-inch RCPs, 4-foot diameter. This is the length. This is the upstream flow line, downstream flow line. So that's the outfall structure that I'm using on this pond. And I've just been, as a record, putting these screenshots of the summary for that junction in HEC-HMS. So for the 50-year event, it's 647 and proposed, 664. And this is the 25-year, 545.6, 548. It's getting a little closer, but it's still lower. So if you look at the HEC-HMS model, you'll notice I put in another reservoir right here. If I were to run it right now, it's not connected to anything, so that's not doing anything in the model. But you see how I put 2 to 10 year? That is because as we go further down, if I were to run this one, let's just do it. Let's run this for the 10-year event. And this is running it with the 4 48-inch RCP outfalls here. I guess this model is showing, or this video, I'm showing what we go through to size outfall structures for detention ponds. This is kind of the games we play. We're going to 30% design, so we're trying to get on top of it and make sure that what we've proposed is going to work, going to provide us the mitigation that we need. So I just ran the 10-year. Now if I look at these flows, 414.8, I'm going to take a copy of that. And I'm going to copy it temporarily in here. So here's the existing. The existing was 403.2. So as we go to smaller events, the size of the outfall pipe is not small enough to restrict the flows that we've increased. So if you look over here, this is actually running in a different way, which I'm about to show you. So right here, it's not good enough. So we have to put another restrictor in. But if you put another restrictor in, you say, well, then my 100-year is going to overtop out of the pond. Yes, but there's a way to do it. I'm just going to turn Ivy's call down. And let's see, get my train of thought back. Ivy's helping out on this project too, so she's doing more important things though. But if you go, so yes, if we make the restrictor smaller, we're in kind of a dilemma. If we make it smaller, the pond's going to overflow, but as it is now, we show an increase for the smaller events. Let me show you, since this pulled up, kind of where we're at in the real world. So this is our detention pond, and it's got areas. SDB4 is somewhere here, and then SDB3 is somewhere here. That's what's draining to the pond. All this is SDB2, so this is kind of representative of that junction SDB2. And then we have another area coming here downstream, so that's kind of representative. This right here is representative of junction PD1 in the HEC-HMS models. So we are going to increase flows to this culvert, and that's okay because it still works, but we're trying to show that at this junction and this junction we are not increasing flows. Now it is going to a major creek, so I may justify like a 2-year increase in flows because the creek can handle that most likely, and it's probably going to be fine. But I'm going to try to keep all the other events from increasing flows. So back to the dilemma. So if I make what I have here, if I were to go ahead and make this a 4 36-inch pipes, and rerun the 10-year, and then I'll look at this junction SDB2 again, 373.5 CFS, which is lower. So you say great, but it's actually not great, because if I run the 100-year now, I can pretty much guarantee you it's not going to work. It's going to fail because computation failed. Computed pool elevation is above maximum for reservoir because there's not enough volume in the pond if you put the pipes that small. So what do? We are going to look at, and I've already done this part, so I'm kind of backtracking to show you all this. Instead of that, we are going to go delete connection. Well, first of all, I'm going to put this one back to a 48-inch RCP because that's what works. And then I'm going to run it to this one. This one I've got the same elevation storage table. I've just changed the outlet. And I've changed it to 3. That's an area of a 36-inch diameter. And that is adding 18 inches to the flow line of the pond at 3608. So I'm basically modeling an orifice with 3 36-inch diameter openings. And I've set it. My idea is this would represent, and I've given instructions in the spreadsheet because we need to document this kind of stuff so that someone who's never touched the project knows what we're thinking. For the 2, 5, and 10-year route junction SDB3 through this reservoir represents 3 36-inch diameter orifice with orifice wall set to 3612. So that orifice wall, once it gets above that, we can have it wide open. So for larger events, this orifice isn't going to impede the flow of a 25-year event or a 50-year event or a 100-year event, but it will restrict the flow more for this 2, 5, and 10-year, which is what we need to not show an impact. So we've got this set up here. I've got this orifice the way I want it. And this is all just trial and error. Like you try, I could have tried 2. I could have tried 24-inch. It keeps failing. And then you keep upsizing it so that it uses the volume, and then you see if it caused an increase in flows there at junction SDB2. So the game you're playing is restricting it enough to decrease the flows here, but not restricting it too much to where it overflows out of the pond. So it's a picture of like a tub of water that is more water coming into it, and you're trying to keep it from overflowing, but you're trying to limit what's going downstream in this channel from overflowing as well. So you're trying to balance that out. And if it fails here and we're utilizing most of the volume here, that means we need more volume, which may be the case. So what I'm going to do is run this for the smaller vents with this smaller orifice. Let's go to Ultimate. I'm going to go to Compute, Multiple Compute, 2, 5, and 10. And this orifice is something that is achievable in design. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it later, but let's see if it just works. So let's look at the 10-year events, 373.7. You will see wait a minute. Okay, 373.7. That's what I copied in here. It's lower than the 403.2. And then we'll see for the 5-year events, 304.4. Barely lower for the 2-year. I show a slight increase, but I don't really think that's important. I could make another orifice and make that work, and I might do that later on in the design, but right now I'm not going to worry about it. Now I'm going to look at this PD outfall junction, which we also need to show no increase to. So for that one, I'm starting at the 100-year event. So for the 100-year event, this orifice wall that we're saying we're going to put in there, the orifice wall at elevation. I'm going to show you why this elevation is important. Orifice wall set to elevation 3612. So if I look now at, not at the junction, but at the reservoir for my 10-year event, and I look at the summary table, the water gets up to 3611.7. So if I set that wall at 3612, it will hold the 2, 5, and 10-year events just fine. This is the 10-year event, and it only gets up to 3611.7. Now if I disconnect it, I'm having this problem with HEC-HMS where it sometimes stops allowing me to delete the connection. I don't know why. There we go. And then let's run it for the 25-year event. 3611.9. Let me see, connect downstream here. I'm going to try the 25-year through this using the orifice, see what happens. It works fine. It goes up to 3613.4. What that tells me is it's going to work either way. That's 466.3. So for the 25, 50, and 100, so before I had 545, the existing was 548. If I set that wall at 3612, the flow is going to be actually higher than this, but because it's going to end up going over the wall and into the 348 inch, but I don't want to get too complicated with the modeling. I just know it's going to work because it works through either one of these, and the wall is set to an elevation to where, let's see, it's set to 3612, so really it's not modeling that it's going to go through the 348 inch pipes, but it will be. I hope that makes sense. Basically above that, let me draw a picture of it. What we're going to have is basically three 36-inch pipes, and then we're going to set this wall elevation, and we're going to design that. We'll design something in the pond where we've got this wall that's forcing it to go through these three 46-inch pipes. But once it gets above that, it's going to have the main outfalls, which are the 4 48-inch pipes for the larger events. So because we know that I could run the 25-year through here and it would be fine, and I could run the 25-year through here and it'd be fine. The larger events really aren't going to, this isn't going to really affect the larger events that much because the water's getting even higher. So that is, hopefully that's giving a clear enough picture for y'all. And now I'm going to move on to looking at this downstream, making sure things are okay here. So I've run that here, and I've actually already done it. I'm not going to bother running it again, but I did one run, and I see I'm at 1294.3, but the existing's at 1260.4 for the 100-year event. So I got to restrict the flow more. I got to try something a little better for the larger event to see if I can get that to come down. What I might do is look at, I'm going to disconnect it. So the larger events we should be running through this main one here. If I try making this outlet instead of 4 48-inch, maybe I can try 4 42-inch. I'm going to run that. That's only going to make flows less, but it might, and it did. It failed because pool elevation above maximum table. That means not enough volume. But if I make the pipe bigger, I know I'm going to have an impact here. So I have to make the pipe smaller. So I need more volume. So I'm not going to go redesign my pond and see if it works. I'm going to mess with it here. So I'm going to multiply it by 1.2 or 1.4 all the volumes I have just to get an idea of what is it going to take and not show an impact there. I'm going to start at 1.6 and then work my way backwards if that works. So this is the original. I'm just going to multiply it by 1.6. Take that in. So that brings my storage available. If I can get it up to about 27.5 acre feet, I'm going to go in HEC-HMS and just replace this data here. And if I ran it now, I'd get an error. So I'm just going to fake this to 0.01. Keep everything else the same. Run it. And as a side note, I probably should not have bothered checking all these smaller events before I had checked this downstream for the 100-year. The 100-year is always going to be the hardest to make work, and you might need more volume based on the larger events. The smaller ones, we just need to play with the restrictors, and we can usually get it to work. So I kind of wasted time. This stuff I did will probably end up changing based on if I'm needing a new pond size here. So let's just see what happened. It ran. Now I'm at 1220 CFS here. Go back, let's see what existing was at this junction PD1. Existing 100-year was 1260.4. So I'm good and then some. So I'm going to try to back off because 1.6 times the pond I have is pretty big. I hope I don't have to do that. I'm going to try 1.4 times. Copy that in. Change this to 0.01 so it's increasing. Let's run it again. Failed. Okay. What about 1.4 times? What if I made this, and I'll have to recheck the other junctions, but what if I made this outlet a little bit bigger? Actually, right now it's 3.5, so I had changed that at some point inadvertently. So let's put that to 448 inch. Let's try running it again. I know this is a 30 plus. It's probably going to be an hour-long video. Who knows? You don't have to watch it all, but I want to show y'all me thinking through this because I want y'all to be able to think through these types of scenarios too. They don't just, there's no easy fix to these things. It just takes getting in there and playing with the models and playing with your volumes, playing with your restrictors until you can get something to work. But you want to do it in a way where you're not redesigning, going back, wasting hours and hours and hours. Okay, so now I ran it with that. Let's see, what was I at? 24.09, so I think this was the 1.4 scenario. It ran, it's at 1261 now, which is so close, 1260.4. That's really close. So I'm going to bump the volume up. Well, I know that if it's barely working for this, it's going to be harder for the other two. For this slightly for the 15-25 year. I'm thinking a little more volume is needed, so I'm going to put it back to this 1.6. Basically needing 10 more acre feet. Put that in here. We'll do that, and then I am going to make it 3.5 diameter. Let's see how things run there. Tell you what, I should have done this, because let me just check it real quick, and then I'm going to do all the storm events. 1220.3. That's really good. That's almost 12. No, that's not. That's good. I'm about 40 CFS lower in the 100-year event. I bet that will start to taper off for the larger events, and as you get smaller and smaller, it's not going to have as much impact. So let's go ahead and run this for all the events and see what happens at this junction. I'm going to go compute, multiple compute, 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, compute. Just wait for it. Relax. Think about your favorite vacation spots. Get your mind off of work. Let HEC-HMS do all the work for you here. Enjoy some of the benefits of being in water resources, getting away from models. Of all the things that we do that are harder than roadway, at least we get a few breaks in there, here and there. show you in plan view again. The implications, we're already using this much space. You know, I can potentially get a little more here. What this is really meaning, which fortunately we have some room to work with here, but I'm probably going to have to eat this over, connect this across, and have another pond here to make this work. I'm not seeing any other, maybe playing with it some more, but it's going to work, but I don't think so because we were using all the volume we could use, restricting it as much as we could, and we still had an impact here. So that means we got to make this pond bigger. And the amount we had to make it bigger was too much, so that's why we're doing it this way, to get kind of a ballpark answer. I know just by looking at it, it's too much that I don't need to even worry about trying to stretch it out here and redesign it. I need another pond over here. So that's going to be the next step, but I want to get to where I know this is going to work. At a conceptual level, and then I'll go and update the design. So what do you think is going to happen after running all those events? I am hoping that we are good on the 150 and 25 year. The smaller events we can run through this other pond and still make it work. So I'm just hoping that we're good on these larger events. For the smaller ones, we might not be good, and that just means we need to introduce this restrictor back for the smaller events only, because it's going to have a wall that the bigger events aren't going to see this restrictor, but they'll see the main one. So it's okay to do things like that where you run it through the same pond but different outfall structures to represent those different restrictors you have that will control certain events. So let's look at the results. 100, we got 1220.3. I'm just gonna copy that. I'm going to put a note above here, 1.6 times current design volume. 4 42-inch RCP outfall pipes. I think that's what we had in here. Check. Yeah. So let's see the other events. 50-year events. $1043.4 CFS. See if we're good there. Still good. As we look at PD outfall, this junction in the existing 50-year. The good thing is I don't have to keep running the existing. Those stay the same. Proposed, I'm still playing with it, so it's going to be changing constantly. Okay, let's see the 25 year. Maybe that's still good. .877.8 CFS. Let's go ahead and screenshot that. Keep a record. .877.8. So it's getting closer. Now these probably aren't going to work with just that scenario. So let's look at the 10-year. .668 CFS. Told you. Doesn't work. But I'm not even going to post that there. What I'm going to do, I am going to disconnect it. And I'm going to try running the same pond. Click downstream here. They both reference the same storage table, so it already has the larger pond in here. So now I'm going to try running my 10-year through that. Now I got a much bigger pond, so I'm not worried about it. Now I can say 669 CFS there at this outfall we're looking at. So is that good? What was the existing? It's still high. What should I do? Well, I can probably look at this and see, even for the 10-year event with these restrictors, I'm only at 3611.2. Remember we said we'd put the wall at, what, 3612? Yeah, so it's not filling up as much because we've got a bigger pond, so that means I can make this restrictor even smaller for these small events. So what is right now, I got 3 36-inch. In order to make it a little simpler, I'm just gonna get rid of one of the barrels, keep it 2 36-inch pipes, same diameter, same flow line. See if that runs. That runs. What's my elevation? 3612.2. Might need to adjust that top elevation, but let's see. 629.3. I think that will be just fine. If I look at that versus the existing was 660, so now we're at 629.3. I'm curious if the 25-year, I'm curious what event would work. So I'm going to run that 25-year through here. Because I got to decide on the wall elevation. So the 25-year worked just fine. The wall got to 3613.6 peak elevation. So the 10-year was at 3612.2, 25-year. The 25-year is going to work with either one of these. So I should probably set the wall elevation somewhere between the two. So I can probably set it at 3612.5. That's just notes from my design. I don't really have to do anything with that in the model. So I'm going to go up here and change this to 3612.5 will work. And go back to the smaller events that I haven't run. So let's go here. 5 year. $497. Let's see if that's see how it's a lot of playing around, and we're not done yet till all these things work. So 5 year is 497, slightly lower. We might be pretty much done at this point because I kind of decided I don't care about the 2 year that much. I can justify slight increase to the 2 year. No one's really, if your house is flooding in the 2 year event, you have bigger problems. So $349.3 is a little bit higher. And I could finagle. I could put a second wall and run the two at a lower elevation and run a 8-inch. So honestly, we might be concerned with the 2 year, but I'm not at 30%. I need to get the big picture to work, because if I can get all the other ones to work, I can get the 2 year to work. It just takes more of the same. So we've adjusted it. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to get all my outputs for this other junction with this new model. Let's see here. Junction SDB2. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to look at that at the 2 year event, get the results. 182.7. This is the 2 year. This is where I'm storing the results. I'm just organizing it by junction and ultimate versus existing. So existing was 197. So now we're good on that. So the only thing we're really, what the heck did it do there? I don't know why it ended up copying way down there. But try not to get lost here. So that's 182.7. Existing was not 197.6. Great. Let's go try the 5 year, which the 2 year is good. I can almost guarantee you the 5 year is going to be good. $251.6. And this is 5 year. Oh my goodness gracious, why did you go way down there? No. This one. My cursor may not have been in the right location. There, 5 year, 251.6. It was 304.6. We are making things really good here. We are making the world a better place with this pond. And we should be. We should be making our roadways more about ponds than they are about roadways. So let's move on to 10 year. 307.5 CFS. Let's go here. Hopefully it copies right there. That's where I want it. 10 year, 307.5 versus 403.2. Look at that. So the main thing I want you to get out of this, I hope you understood sort of the logic that we have to go through to get these. It's not just shooting in the dark. Like, we have to look at the big events, which I should have done that right off the get-go. Look at the downstream junctions for all the big events and make those work. And you keep making the pipe smaller out of your detention pond, and then once that overflows, and if you can't make the pipe small enough to where you don't have an impact and you don't overflow, then you got to make the pond bigger. And then you also have to make the pipe smaller to utilize that bigger pond. You do that till you get those bigger impacts to work. Then you put in, you might see that you have impacts on the smaller events. Then you put in some kind of structure that with a wall that lets water over it at larger events, and you restrict the flow in those structures, and then you make it work for those smaller events. Except the 2 year, we don't care about it. No, the 2 year I can go back later, or we might not care about it. So that's that. I know I reran, I changed some things for these. So I'm going to get those flows again, but that one I need to reconnect it to this one, because as we talked about, it's not, the larger events are not going to see this restrictor because you've got the wall that's letting water over. So delete connection, connect downstream. Let me do a multiple compute. I just want the ultimate 25, 50, and 100. And we're going to see that these are even better than they were before because we had to make more volume to make this one work. So it's all going to be good, but with the cost of, we had to make our pond 1.6 times bigger, so now we're going to need detention over here. Which, why shouldn't there be? It's a big open area. Make it a pond. $50 running. I hope this is helpful. I wonder how many people are going to sit through the 454 minutes. We're almost done. Probably 2 more minutes, then I'm going to cut it off. I just feel like I want to show everyone that all the events work now. We just got to find a way to make the pond 1.6 times bigger. And make sure you do those things, and make sure you figure out that you need that volume first, like we talked about. If you make the restrictor small enough that you're still showing impacts until it overflows the pond, then you need a bigger pond. This is also the unfortunate reality of modeling. I thought this would be a really quick, and it's a really straightforward thing that I'm doing. It's just, it is time consuming to run all these different scenarios and get it to work. So we've already gotten the ones at this one We just need to get the ones at this junction SDB2 here. 637.2 for the 100-year. Copy that. 100-year right here, it was 791. Now it's 637.2. Look at that. Like I said, we're making the world such a better place here. .1 CFS. Look at that, was 664. It's almost 100 CFS we've shaved off there. And 25-year, finally. .480 CFS. It was 548. So look at this. We got all these results now. So we starting up here, junction SDB2, existing 100 years 791, proposed 100 year 637. Let's go all the way down to 5-year 403.2, 307.5. We're really cutting flows at that junction. We're having a harder time here. So here we're only cutting it by 40 CFS, and that's the 100-year, and then we look at the 25-year here at this downstream junction, and it's much closer. So it's not that we're being super excessive in the volume we're providing. Like if we were cutting all the flows by just a ridiculous amount, I'd say let's try to use less volume, but I feel like these aren't that much of a, this is kind of about what you want to show, is a slight decrease in flows for your 100-year, slight decrease for your 25-year. So I think I've got the answer I'm looking for. Another thing to point out, I know I've taken so much of your time. Thanks for watching whatever part of this you watched. But another thing to point out is just how I don't mix designing with this modeling aspect, because that would just be, there's so much iterations that goes into this modeling. It would just be a huge waste of time. So you just have to really get general with it and then go back to the drawing and say, okay, this is what I think is going to work, and then go design that and then put it back in, and it's probably going to work. But I'm not going to keep designing and then keep doing it. I'm just going to say, okay, what if I make my pond 1.6 times bigger, 1.4 times bigger, run it till it works. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. Hope this gives you some tools to be able to improve your HEC-HMS modeling and model different detention scenarios. If you need some help with this, reach out to me anytime. Thanks. Bye.